Hey guys, it's Quinn here, and we're still reading Little Hobbs Bearstone. Part 5 is today, so let's see where we left off. So let's get started. Chapter 15. It took 3 days of tedious handwork for them to clean the entrance. At last, Cloyd's shovel broke through into empty space. He felt and looked through the small opening. He saw only blackness. He felt a steady flow in the cold air escaping the mine through the hole he'd made. Where's the air coming from? He asked Walter. Oh, that's one of the lucky things about this mine. Fresh air's always moving through. It comes down from the surface through cracks in the formations. Once they completely cleared the portal, Walter showed Cloyd how to rig his headlamp and how to ignite the gas containing the water dripping in a carbide. Then they started inside. As they ventured down the center of the narrow railway, the air felt pleasantly cool. Cloyd glanced constantly over his shoulder to this blinding light of the portal. He banged his hard against the tooth of the rock below the ceiling. The cold surprised him. Suddenly found his bones next time he wore a sweatshirt and jacket. At the end of a tunnel, he was surprised by the ore car, big enough that both of them could have climbed in. How'd you get this thing up there? He asked. Oh, I had to take it apart with a torch and whatnot machine new parts for bolting it back together, bringing in pieces up there in a horseback, then reassembled it. The rails were something else again. In the mornings, they entered the mine ready for work. Cloyd held tight to the heavy drill bits and the long copper spoons. But one thing he liked was the feel of the hard the hiss of the burning gas in the headlamp. Before long, he told himself, he is accustomed to his strangeness inside the mountain. Working with the old man, he wouldn't be so afraid of being trapped in the dark under the earth. At the end of the tunnel, Cloyd pointed out the fiend of silver ore had been falling many years before his late-to-gold contract. Cloyd was surprised to find it wasn't silver-colored at all, but black, peppered here and there in the quartz. Now set those wounds and drills down. Walter said, I'll tell you how we're going to start. We'll drill 7 lucky holes in a circle around his vein, then 3 in the center about 2 feet apart in a triangle, angel in them, so they met inside like the top of the pyramid. Then the dynamite, not yet. We drill the river top of the face, eggers on both sides, lifter at the bottom. If we do it right, we time the changes so the center comes out first, making space so everything's around, of somewhere to go when it's blasted a hair waiter. The lifter going to last hits it all where we can mug into or a car. What do I do? You're my partner when we're double jacking that one man working on a drill bit. The sledgehammer will step every so often to fish out of the dust with the spoons. How fast can we go? Cloyd asked with a little hope. Not fast at all, but what tying to the hog? I'll tell you what the good pace would be, though. Those old timers could do. A good pair of double jackers could drill 2 inches in a minute. If it were going all out over a long run, like an hour, they would go maybe 30 inches. Why can't we? We got to play it safe. We're 2 days from help those drill neat heads make a mighty small for target with a sledgehammer. Once I saw the 4th of July drilling contest with a Silverton that really made an impression on me. Now this is a true story. The object of the competition was to see how deep he could drill in 15 minutes. These 2 Bullstrongs commission took their turn having a 6-foot thick slab of Gunnison, granite, the man of a sledge, early on the contest. He's working at the good 50 blow per minute pace. Of a sudden, we see his hammer stop out in the air. Realize he's just hit his partner's hand. And the crowd groans, but the hurt man yells, "Bring it down! Bring it down!" What did that mean? He didn't want to quit even though he's been hurt so bad. So the sledgeman resumes hammering. We all see the hand go red, the man's face showing it's all because it's due to keep it turning. His blood is mixing up with the water, flushing out of the dust. Every time the hammer comes down, the crowd is splashed by bloody water. Then it's time to hurt the man to take his turn with his sledge. And still, he won't quit, and the hammer is up in the air. The blood runs down his arm until it's red all the way into his shoulder. The man never gave up until the timer gave a signal. Then he faded dead away. He died. He died? No, blacked out. Did they win? No, Walter said thoughtfully. They didn't come close, but they finished. Couldn't pay the man to no more than for fools like they're doing this to us for free. To Cloyd it all seemed impossibly strange and dangerous. But he would work if he as hard as he making a fence line, but he wouldn't feel strangeness or the danger. And this time he trusted in the old man so not blow up like before. After 7 days of bone rattling, drifting, they were ready to blast as Walter wished. Coulter waited outside while they placed the dynamite in the drill holes and set the timing of the fuses. Clay was exhausted. The cold had sucked all of his strength. The word has been repetitive, painful, endless, in a pretty place he could enjoy working. In the mine, he entered it only for sake of the old man. At first, they'd taken long breaks outside, down to the creek, where they could lie in the grass and eat and rest. Then as days went by, Walter stretched into working hours, made the breaks shorter. Close to the blasting, Chloe to tell the old man didn't want to break at all or even sleep. He was so excited. He wanted to work through the end to see what he could find. At last, all was ready. Walter came out of the mine to make sure Chloe was standing well clear of the portal. They went back inside and set all the charges. After a while, he came running out of the tunnel while looking in his eye and yelled, "Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole!" Clay smiled. The expression of the old man's face made it all worthwhile. They came in the way of the cushion as the charges rumbled inside the mine. A dark cloud of smoke and dust poured out of the entrance. It was some time before the air cleared enough of the tenant to reach the mine. Chloe was surprised to see how little progress the blast had made. No more than 4 feet. Chloe knelt and examined a piece after piece of the rock by scratched by the explosion. He hoped there might be at least some good silver ore for him to take home, but he was so disappointed. For poor makings, he said. Weak silver, not even worth a packing out of the SA. They had nothing to show for his long days. Cloyd thought that then he'd never really believed they'd find anything. Now they had to shovel all the broken rock into the car and drop it over the edge of the dump inside. It would take many loads to clear out of the tunnel for work on the next round. Yet Walter turned into the hand mucking with new enthusiasm. Next time we'll turn up something better, he said. Rats are gold anyway. You talked to that lucky bear of yours. It's still a prosy vein, and so can we the gold. Chloe was convinced they were wasting their time, but he said nothing. He'd been trying to hide his feelings for the old man. Somehow he'd been feeling any time for him to go fishing. Somehow after the first few nights, there was no time to set aside to sit around a campfire in the evenings. There won't be time to work, eat, and sleep. Shovelful. By wearing shovelful, he helped water and milk out of the tunnel. The bigger rocks he had to grapple with a lift by hand. Once the ore car was finally filled, they had to wedge its wheels to stop every few feet. Or it would speed out of control or hurt out of the dump down of the creek. Down of the deck, I don't know. Each night he noticed the old cold seemed like to bite a little deeper. The fragile high country summer was beginning to lose out winter. He feared that he was losing his chance at the peaks. He took them whole day to clear the mine. The prospect of starting all over again on the next round. The drilling was worse than working itself. 6 or 7 more days of aspire-wrecking torment. The ender before they ready to blast again before long. He knew too well they had to leave his mountains. Then school would start his precious time, and the mountains would be in used to take inside of one apart and move it outside. He was trying hard, but he wasn't sure he'd be able to hold up. 3, 4, 5 days of the second go-round passed. Chloe worked in a trance, trying to concentrate on the turning the bit between blows. There was only penetrating cold of the hiss of a burning acetylene, or how do you pronounce this? In his headlamp, the benumbing filled the cold steel in his hands. The stinging shock of a blow and harsh reports of a hammer rattling up and down the confines of mine, it was enough to drive him crazy. More and more, Walter begrudged or something. Hated himself that the time it took to eat and sleep. He had to see what next blast will turn up. He come up with the first calculations and committed himself. He was closer than he thought. The contact, the artery of the high-grade cold, one which would imbricate directly in the heart of the mountain. His old obsession has taken over that he'd forgotten about the boy. About Cloyd's great desire to see the high country, he'd forgotten what it told his season James. That the trip wasn't so much of a mind as change due to play the mountains. But it had lain dormant for almost 40 years. The great of the mountains of his youth, gold fever, has both summoned his virulent stain in the violent of his vacuities. He slipped in his assumption that their enterprise was exciting for Clay to ascend for himself. Until that is, they neared the second round of the blasting, and in one of the querying during the midday break, he had happened to read the boy's face. He realized he made the boy a prisoner, sort of again, and must set him free at once. But he had to do it in such a way that Clay wouldn't feel compelled to stay and help. Before I used to start with part 1 of this, but I had to take some of the stuff out, like stickers, because I don't want to interrupt my story or anything. I don't want to lose anything. So let's get started. Out. He himself has no intention of quitting with the context so near. A stratagem came to mind. None of his life had approved it, or he either under ordinary circumstances evaded by the substantial margin for the truth, a white lie, he told himself of the boy's benefit. Well, Cloyd, I had it, he said disgustedly. Surprised, Cloyd overlooked all the disappointment all across the old man's face. How do you mean? He asked. Like they say in the old business, it's a dry blind, we're wasting our time, but you won't know until the blow up again and see. A long, logical objection, Walter thought he had a counter with a bogus expertise. I've been looking at the powder we've been fishing out the drill holes with spoons. Indications are bad, mighty poor, and I figured we ought to give it up before she eats what's left in the summer. Didn't you want to climb up one of these mountains? Maybe that Rio Grande pyramid? Maybe the gold's just a little farther, Cloyd insisted. Maybe, but chances are slim to none. If we quit now, we have a little time. Maybe a week before we have to head back. Now, what about the pyramid? Let's get you some food packed. Go over some naps. Why? You could be ready to take out in the morning. Aren't you coming with me? For a moment, Walter was so touched that Cloyd would want him along. He almost abandoned his plan, thought he lacked the wind and climbed a high altitude. They could ride together instead of a base camp. Before the boy set out alone, even more he was realizing that the next blast of the treasure it might break loose. My lungs couldn't take it in thin air, he said. That's close to 14,000 feet. I might have a fit or something. We wouldn't have to go so high up. No, Clay, I'd rather stick close to the camp here and just enjoy myself poking around, looking at the scenery, brewing coffee and whatnot, and take the blue boy there. You better off on horseback as far as you can go. Take the pack horse too. Park your horses in the trees before you climb up over above timberline. Suddenly, Walter was spooked. He shouldn't be letting the boy go off alone in the mountains. It was never a good idea. No matter how experienced you were, yet he done it often enough. When he was young, stay off those peaks when the weather's coming on. You know what's that about? I'll be careful, Clay promised. Chapter 16. Mile by mile, Clay rode up the gentle metal of the pine. As he saw the royal granite pyramid gradually nearing, his confidence grew. He rode the beauty all around him. He rode a powerful horse. He wanted to be his friend. Hey-ya, Blue Boy, hey-ya. Cloyd's spirit was free and had all the running room in the world. There was no limit where it might go or what was possible. Hey-ya, he sang. Hey-ya, hey-ya, Blue Boy. The roan tried to break it into a trot, even to a run, but the pack horse held him back. Cloyd could tell that Blue Boy was taking the morning's wild spirit. All day was made for two of them. He dismounted and tied the pack horse to a tree. The little way stopped the trail. Then he walked back into the roan and said, "Let's run, Blue. I mean, really run." And they ran streaming through the meadows of the pine. And Cloyd and the horse were one, and they were flying through the wind and the light all around him, showing the mountains and the trees and the river. Cloyd grinned as he ran, and then as he broke into a smile, his teeth caught the wind, and he couldn't stop smiling all the way to the meadow. The day was different. It wasn't if he was coming to a new world all bright and shining. It was made for him. They rested in the meadow, and they drank the stream. The roe was delighted with the meadow grass the tore if it wasn't eaten for weeks. Cloyd lay on his back in the grass and watched the trees and the hillside sway in his wine. He wondered if the trees could feel. He decided that they could. They like to wrap themselves in the air, sway with the breeze, and what the air smooths their branches in everywhere little needle. Back in the horse, he warned forward to speak. The roan swiveled a near back. "Want to?" Cloyd whispered. "Want to, Blue?" The roan exploded to a gallop. They ran all the way back to the down in the meadow. Then he collected the pack horse and continued on his way to the pyramid. After several miles, he had to leave the trail and stick upward through the dark sparse forest. There were no trails where he was going. Blue Boy and the pack horse rayboarded rapidly, thinning air as the clay glided them to screw his deadfall. Up they climbed. After a few miles, Cloyd resisted them on a bench where the waterfall spilled into a string of beaver ponds. The horse grazed while Cloyd ate his lunch in the consummate. Seeped through him, his place was almost enough. He felt so good at the peak if he made it. It was his trust to store against the future. He was supposed to see as much of the mountains as he could besides the pyramid. He was taking two other names due to Lake in the Rickhamley Osa, the corner of a bear. As he climbed again, the spruces huddled in the clusters, squatted, and they grew below. The grassy slopes led the world to wildflowers. He left the last of the trees behind the row and rode through one bloom was reds, yellows, and blues. He could almost reach the touch and continental divide. That's where it was Walter had explained. Rivers brown down a different ocean started out without splitting a difference of each other. He rested the horse while he took it all in. Here he was in the high, treeless, wood rolled patched in snow banks as far as he could see. The spongy, delicate, wind-lashed birthplace of rivers, a one giant pyramid upload above a few miles away. He only if he really could climb. Close at hand, a spectacular formation in the divide caught his fancy. It was called the window, and it was so close that he could see the birds flying in a wild gap between its sheer walls. They were so small birds, and the birds seemed to be flying whoops, and she enjoyed it, and they come to play, realized that they must pour through if they like anything. He noticed a bit of the elk trail winning the window across the step of the scree slide to the fine rock. On the spur of a moment, he said to the roan, "You want to stand at that window, Blue Boy?" "I sure do." He tied the pack horse and rode the roan toward the window. He wanted to stand between those torn walls and a few air currents, see the bird up close, and look over the other side. And I know window is it's like some curtains, but it's not just a It's not just a window. It's a different window, just to be honest, if you want to know that. The started across the elk trail. Once out of the scree slope, Chloe thought the elk was crossed out, must be sure-footed or very brave. The fine rock slid under the man's roan's hoofs. Its steepness and slowed underneath and began to worry him. It's not the great mountain go trail. He thought yet there was no place to turn around, no place to keep going forward. They inched across the dizzying slope until they reached the window, and they rode felt about going out. We're almost there. Chloe encouraged him. Then he chuckled and said, "Don't you want to stand on the windowsill?" With the jump, Barone gained the rock ledge they were standing where Chloe wanted to be. When the shears like towers, they watched the shallows and put on a show. They could even see the rainbow in their swinging patches to the north, across the royal granite country. And a whole new world has opened up to seem like a wilderness has no end. If only the old man could see us standing there, he thought, immediately in the window. I wish my sister could, my grandmother, and the Susan Janes, but especially the old man. Wonderful, wonderful day. He thought there is not a cloud in the sky. Chloe thought of the pyramid. There was still time to climb it today. Tomorrow the weather could turn bad. He realized it would be harder to roam the step of windowsill than it's been scrambled up. He could fall. Besides, he liked the idea of riding through the window, so he did. He rode it through. Then he whooped one of the towers until he gained a ridge top and picked up the vertical trail. The slope was awful steep, and it wasn't all scree like the one that he crossed before. There was quite a bit of the grass on it. Halfway down the roan pulled and held his ground in front of him, and springs popped out of it. It didn't know why the roan was go across. The horse was walking around. Sorry. But there was no passage about or below the muddy spot. We don't mind the mud, Clay said. He smacked his lips and kicked the horse forward. Come on, Blue Boy, you can do it. You can do it, Blue Boy. The roan tried the mud and eased into it after a word. Quite embarrassed how the horse landed back at the turn as a reassurance. Verone took another step. It was in the mud all the way up in front of his shoulders. The one of his free legs was scrambling desperately, and thudding. One of the reds was trapped, and Blue Boy was falling. And one of the horse went down, and it was all blue bore. And Clay knew only he was able to be crushed. He barely managed to free of his feet, and the stirrups and the wood to hop bill of his roan and fell on its side. Clay was pinned in his mud, and all around in bed, and where 4 hoofs on a roan, he saw the horseshoes, and even the trail of the horseshoes. Clay saw the Blue Boy attend to the paper to kick the roan of the kit to the balance. The resist pulled the slope underneath him, where he crushed the boy's skull. Clay trusted all night to free himself. He was completely mirrored. The airs meant in the moment the Clay would never forget Blue Boy was poisoned to kick. Then he saw Cloyd's head here, but he didn't kick it, not at all, but slowly rode over his back. All 4 legs arched away from the boy, and then Blue Boy tucked his way and tumbled down to the mountain, slowly at first, then faster and faster like a trundling boulder. The roan way at the foot of the scree slope several hundred feet below, full of dread. Cloyd freed himself from the mud and worked his way down to the horse. Blue Boy was alive and how badly hurt. His breathing came into sports, and he was getting up. Maybe you're okay, he told the horse without believing it might be so. Maybe you're okay. You gotta get up. Are your legs broken? Are you all busted up inside? Clay made the roan stand up. He was made to see Blue Boy get up and walk. We keep talking to the horse, and he was so relieved and thankful. After a little while, he led the Blue Boy down to the tunnel of grass. Somehow, there was no broken bones, nothing but a few scratches. Somehow, they both lived through it. They led the horse down and scratched around the base of the slope and back at the pack horse. Clay found the camp barely into the trees by a trickle the stream running into the snowbanks. There was no way he was going to try to climb the pyramid of a day. Brushing the dried mud of his clothes, he marveled at the scar face of the horse he made. He shouldn't have taken Blue Boy where he did. He wondered if he would climb the pyramid at all. He wondered if he should even try. Maybe he should just get back to the old man while it was safe. He didn't really know what he was going to do anyway. He almost killed the horse. Got killed himself. What does he need to stay on top of the mountain for anyway? Clay breathed through the long evening, crawled to his sleeping bag and fell asleep in the fading fire. In his dreams, the horse kept falling over and over all night. He woke up freezing the cold night air. He should have pitched his tent. He wished the way would come at first why he woke, and at first he couldn't ride away and give up and leave his dream behind. Maybe he would fail. But at least he had to try. Maybe what happened with all roan, earning the peak, not reason to give up, had the old man said that he heard you give over makes you stronger. He ate quickly and set off on foot. Goodbye, Blue Boy. Cat on his shoulder. I'm going to for the top of the world. With a few hours in heat under the mountains far enough to enter the trees under the pyramid to run right in front of him, as he nodded the cloud of former to the mountains, after he could see through mesas down in New Mexico, how much greater it would be viewed in a peak. They will be able to see all directions with spirits rising and bounding and rock and how it slopes and tumbling from the ridge and high above, small rabbits and the tall peaks and squeak and scurry and small boulders on all sides, and morbos inside of the small dog stewed in its hind legs, and whistled shrilly at him. He grinned to think about the old man that was called them whistle pigs. Are you a whistle pig? He asked playfully. The marmot whistled once more. I guess you are. I wish I could whistle like that. Clouds were forming quickly up and down in a range and reached the mountain. He could imagine what the lightning storm in the peak would be like. He wasted no time to pick up the rope. There was only one way by which he had a chance of reaching the summit, and that was a knife edge in front of them. There was two planes and a pyramid met. He left the peak as an apartment and behind to start picking the way up the knife edge. If you don't know what a peak is, like searching on Google, if you're watching this. Now it was all rocks. Some of the rocks were loose and take him with them and fall down to the view of the worst. He slid 1,000 feet of the snow before being pitched the boulders below. Chloe kept climbing the fruit, trying to keep his mind of each step, each handled, and his throat was thin and scared his lungs. Every time he reached a spot of his mind had stopped in, he found the way around, located across the footholds of the Banos continue. The chords were building and starting to darken, but they were still in the distance. The Chloe felt strong. He remembered the first day of the old man's farm. He climbed an outcrop, avoiding the Bearstone, and fastened his long on these peaks. He found his rhythm of the climbing and proceeded to the knife edge at a steady, careful pace. A calm, gently lifted Chloe at the vinyl piece of the climb he was as sure easy making the top than of anything. He slid to full to the last little bit and set to the airy tip of the pyramid. Peaks on all sides were brightening on the blue sky. Peaks everywhere, dancing, jutting up in all the motion. He had to sit down to grip a rock. Peaks as far as he could see. Peaks, rocks, and green tundra. Snowbanks, spruce, forest, river canyons. As he caught his breath, Chloe saw big birds soaring far below. Probably it was an eagle. He enjoyed its misery of the winds. He watched it disappear, and storm was gathering in the needles. And shadow was overtaking the mountainsides of it out in the low country. The sun was just shining, and he was made to recognize as Cheska Mountains. And if you haven't heard the word Cheska, go look it up. In a hazy distance, where they were in the same mountains, and he was also the same White Mesa. The home was really so far away. Someday he had to go home. He knew he didn't have time to be soon. Whenever it happened, it'd be all night. Alright. Chloe pulled up. Whenever it happened, it would be alright. Chloe pulled the booster in his pocket. He set the little Blair on the flat rock at the very top of the mountain. Old Bear, he was still wild. They were not so alone anymore. Chloe thought how Walter would like to be deep in the cold gardens of his gold mine. He wished the old man could have stepped there with them. He'd tell him with his heart, the mountains up there in the light he can see forever, where you feel like you're part of it all, like the being part of the mountains is your own heart. He never felt this way before, free and peaceful at the same time. If only there was a way to show the old man how thankful he was for Blue Boy, for everything. He should show the careful for Walter like a son for a father. The wind began to blow hard and the temperature was dropping. We had to start down soon. He wished he could stay longer and try to take it all in. But it didn't matter. He had fulfilled his dream. It would be something he could always keep with him. He remembered with his grandmother, he had told him how the UTs with all these mountains, old her UTs like himself, his moonstone on the peak years ago. They had probably done something special in their song. Something Chloe recalled discerning his grandmother has taught him, but he was never done. Taking the Bearstone in his hand, he held it out the upwards and the turn of the four directions, then to the earth and the sky. Chapter 17. Chloe was eager now to be on his way back to the old man, but he wouldn't take the shortest way. There was no more one he wanted to see. Dropping through the deep timber, and he picked the divide trail and followed below it until he sighted the UT wake. and deep crater tucked in the north slope of the timberline. On the way down, he saw the three bull elk grazing the lush grass along the riverway that fed the wake when they heard a horse coming down the switch banks. The elk hurried up the far side of the basin into the brushing mountain was beyond. At the wake side of Chloe made his camp to hobble his horse in the good grass. Before long, he had his rod assembled. Was searching for the bait, he found a tiny grasshopper and dropped it on the surface of a deep, rocky lake. But the fish weren't interested. They could see its lips kicking, but they were interested in. He tried to salmon eggs, no luck. The truth started hitting in the surface of the flies, even turning into gnats. He wondered if the old UTs had fish in the lake named after them, but how he laughed out loud. And he doubted they were fly fishermen at the sun dropping behind the needles. As he sat by his fire, and he ate a chilly supper. It tasted good, and the pack horse was as one leads in the Kiri warmth. And the continent sweated about Hoover's body. Cloyford his money found him right in the UT lake. Up the divide is descending into a long alpine descent called the Rinkenlesselsa, which could lead him back to the valley of the pine, which might be gone in the mine and water. He thought happily. He thought about how he was going to tell the old man about the moment he with his eyes and Blue Boy met. That he found out the answer to the question of whether horses could care about you. The red-haired man was wrong about horses. At least about this one. He had a lot he wanted to talk about with the Walter. He wondered if Walter would recognize how much grown he is in 4 days' time. He stopped to rest and eat the berries of the bank or stream, as it found its way slowly across the meadow before the wrong basin. Kneeling by the stream to drink, he marveled at the clarity of the water, which seemed to magnify every pebble on the bottom. He became aware what was looking as well. At the dark became of 3 large trout, motionless except for the fanning of the fair wind fins. One of them professed becoming aware of them. Starting out the tiny inlet on the side of the creek, Chloe followed to keep his eye on the fish moving slowly up a narrow passage. He liked to catch his fish, but he thought catch this somehow without the fishing hole. Was it true his grandmother had thought, he said, in the old days some of the UTs could catch fish in their bare hands? He would try. The fish would have to come back to the stream sometime. He could pick a spot and wait for it to come through. With one knee on each bank, Clay straddled the inlet. Slowly he watered his hand and ran his arms in the icy water to see if his arms were long. And as he waited, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, he couldn't tell any more. His arms went numb, his back arched, but he didn't move a muscle, so he could see the trout slowly swimming towards him, pausing here and there for 1 minute. The trout was close now, glad to see its mouth working. Its bright orange markings and looking for the tunnel the man's arms made. Would it retreat with dart between his hands before he could close on it? He held them as still as he could. It swung till closer. It began to narrow a gap between his freezing hands. Slowly, unsuspecting, it caught hold, swung between them. Cloyd closed and as calmly as he could, he dug with his nails, grasped the fish, lifted with his one motion out of the water and went to the bank. He stepped out the easy eased the striking pain in his back. The oats whinnied. A dark shape was moving in the meadow, an animal working with an unusual gift. A bear. A huge brown bear. It was aware of him. It stood and its tended higs that had to look at him. Its head swayed back and forth. Chloe was astonished as how tall it was. Its claws were enormous. The bear it dropped quickly as all fours and suddenly disappeared into trees. The big fish flip-flopped against Chloe's leg. It nudged it back to the water with its foot. Then leaped across the running stream and took it off running in the hope of the second glimpse of the huge bear. Once at trees, it walked Chloe softly, looking all around and tried to listen to the bear's passage. All he could hear is the fears punning in its own heart. In the quiet darkness of the trees, bear was nowhere, everywhere. Chloe felt foolish and reckless. For having to try to follow, he ran back to the sunlit meadow. To the horses, he wanted to hurry back to the camp at the Snowside Creek. He wanted to tell the old man about the bear. It was late afternoon. He rode into camp. He was like nauseous to see Walter with the old man was drinking coffee and visiting by the campfire with his friend Rusty, the red-haired man. Walter's face looked up when he saw Chloe. I didn't expect it until tomorrow or so. He said, "How did everything go?" "Fine," Chloe mumbled. All these mysticism was squelched. The Tommy was looking him over like he did before. No no handshake this time. But all the feelings were made the same as before. Chloe, there's been now exploring the mountains. Did you climb that Rio Grande pyramid? Chloe nodded half-heartedly. He felt so disappointed. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there because I'm like almost halfway done to this book, so like tomorrow I think it might be a last part or something, or let's see what we can do. See you guys later in peace.